Hello, everybody. Hey, we're going to speak about building your very own DevTool extension. So before speaking about developer and stuff and DevTool extension and DevTools, I'm going to present myself a little bit. You might know me or might not. My name is Enzo Conty. It's been 6 years that I'm working as a freelancer with Flutter every day as a full-time job. And I have doing maybe 40 to 50 applications during all this time. And I'm also a very active member of the community of Flutter, so maybe you see me there or at the booth later on. And I'm also a GDG, so Google Developer Group organizer for the city of Bordeaux, southwest of France. So if any of you all want to come, you are always welcome. And I'm also the Flutter Meetup Group organizer for the same city. So here we are. If you want to contact me, you have my socials. I'm very active on Twitter. So if you have a question, you can always contact me there. All right, so let's speak about DevTool and DevTool extension. For that, I prepare for you a little bit of an agenda. We'll speak about the history of Flutter DevTools, because maybe you all are maybe new to Flutter or maybe 2 years old into Flutter, and this is something that actually evolved a lot. We'll also speak about extension. So what does it imply? And after we'll make an extension altogether, or at least we will try. All right, history of DevTools, of Flutter DevTools. So this is a very, very short version of the history of Flutter DevTools. We all know what Flutter DevTools is, or I hope so. Yeah, is there somebody who don't know what it is? No? Perfect. So DevTools is a tool to help you to debug and have more information and in-depth in your app. And we have all of the things that we already know. For example, we have the Flutter inspector, we have the timeline, we have the performance tab, we have the debugger tab, the network tab, and the logging tab. But it was not always like this. Firstly, some of the tabs arrived after some work. I mean, it was not there in 2017, of course. But most importantly, some might not know that it was not made in Flutter. It was actually made in HTML and CSS, and Dart was the logic. And so it was not using the Flutter framework before Flutter 1.17. And that was not a big issue at the time, but it became a bigger issue because the Flutter team wanted to actually have their hand-on product for Flutter. So they wanted to actually work with Flutter, but also develop things with Flutter itself. And they also changed it for a very big reason. This is so that the community could contribute into the DevTools development. All right. So it brings us to extension. As I said, Flutter 1.17 brings a rework of Flutter DevTools into Flutter. It's a bit complicated, but it also brings many new possibilities. Because since Flutter 3.16, which is November 2023, so almost a year, we have the possibility of creating extension. So what are those extensions? I found a little bit of description on the internet, and they say that Flutter DevTools extension are some things that add custom functionality to the DevTools suite, enabling more specialized debugging and analysis of Flutter applications. So blah, 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 blah. It's a little bit boring, but what it says is just say that we have an option now that we can develop something that can be more specialized and help you to debug things more in depth. So what does that work? How does that work? And how does it really works, basically? So here's an image that explains the behavior of the DevTools when you add a package that contains a DevTool extension to your project. So on this image, we can see that we have in yellow DevTool extension, which is something that we will create, which is contained in a package. So firstly, we know something that's you need to have a package to have a DevTool extension on it. This package, if you put it in your app on your prospect.yaml, and then after you run and open the DevTools, you will see that you actually have now the DevTool extension for this package. So before creating and showing how to create our DevTool extension, I will show you just a little bit of more bigger packages that are actually using DevTools extension today and see what the capabilities are. So right now we have the provider package that are using, which is using like the DevTools extension to just visualize data of your own providers. We also have Patrol, which they have a stanza, and they use like the DevTools extension to help you find native resource IDs. What does that mean? It means that, for example, if you have a pop-up on the screen that show up and ask you for permissions, usually with Flutter test or something like this, you cannot just tap it because it's native permissions. But with Patrol, you can like find the ID of the button for allow permission, for example, and you can click on it after you program for it. So this is like just like in-depth tools that help you to find other stuff. And there is also other packages like Flame or Drift that also use DevTools extension. If you know any of the others, I'm also a taker because I couldn't find any others. So let's get into the subject. So enough about history and definition, and we want to create our own DevTools extension, and maybe I motivated you to create yours. But firstly, I want to see out of all of you, who is an author, maintainer, or contributor of a package? Can you raise your hand? Yeah. All right, a few there, a lot here, a few there. Okay, and out of all of you, is there like anyone who started to create a DevTools extension who or at least like thinking about creating a DevTools extension? Yes, one. All right, two. And that's exactly why I'm really evangelizing this topic. Is because like this feature exists for almost a year, and we almost have like no package at all who support it. And I feel like it's very sad because when you have developers, now they have like to search into the README, the issue, all the documentation, but they don't have like their own way of debugging by themselves like the package that they're using without searching into the code of the package by searching in the package. Sorry. So here is a simplified file tree of a standard package. So you have the folder, you have the example folder, you have the lib folder, you have the test folder if you do tests, and you also have, of course, the pubspec.yaml, but I didn't show it up here because I only show directories. All right. To create your own Flutter DevTools extension, you have to create manually this architecture. So we will have an extension folder, and inside this extension folder, we'll have a DevTools folder who itself have it like a build folder, and we'll have like next to it a config.yaml file. So all of this has to be like into your root package, so into the main directory of a package. So let's speak about this config.yaml file. This config.yaml file have like 5 fields, but one is like optional, which is like require connection. So it's very I think like simple. We have a name, we have a versioning, we have an issue tracker. We can put basically a link for wherever you're taking issues. You have the material icon code points, which is basically just a little icon that will be shown next to your package. And this is like just the code that you see. You can find it in the doc for material icons. You have also the require connection, and this is the optional field, and it just like asks you if the DevTools extension will be connected or not to the application that you are debugging. Right now I put false, but you can definitely put true. All right. So as I said, for example, here you can see there is an extension, DevTools extension called like foo, and he have like a little bit like icons, and this is the icon that you can put before. All right. So now that we spoke about the config.yaml file, I want to speak about how we actually build the DevTools extension. And it's actually not as easy as you think. And it can be like difficult to explain, so I hope I will not be messing around. But we have a build folder, and this build folder will have the pre-compiled version of another project, another Flutter web project inside of it. So if that doesn't make sense, let's wait a few slides. Basically, we're going to create a new project outside of our current project, outside of the current package. And please follow the naming convention of like having like the same name of your package. For example, my awesome package, if you have an awesome package. And after you put like DevTools extension. DevTools extension is really a naming convention to follow, please. So at the end, we have like this kind of like file tree where we have like two different packages, and one is not really a packages, one is an app, a Flutter web app, and the other is a packages. Why? Because we actually need to separate sources. You don't want to include your source file, the source files of your DevTools extension inside of your package. Because if you do so, then the extension in the package will make the package heavier, and so the app bundle will be heavier, and this is just not a practice that you want to do. So you really want to separate both. Now that you created the new web app, we're only going to speak about this new web app, and when I say the new web app, I'm speaking about the My Awesome Package DevTools extension, the thing in orange. This is just a classical web app, like you can just create it with Flutter create. And just to be clear, if I switch in between like this slide and the previous slide, so the orange thing, My Awesome Package DevTools extension, is basically the yellow thing on this side, and the blue thing is basically My Awesome Package. All right, so now that we created all the file architecture that we need, now we can really start developing. How do we do that? It's very simple. We actually have to, under the Flutter web project, we have to add like two extensions. So we have to make like the DevTools extension and the DevTools app shared dependencies. What are they doing? They do both things like different things, but they are very complementary. I'm going to speak about the DevTools app shared in first, and after I will speak about the DevTools extension. So the DevTools app shared basically expose three different global objects that can be used in your code base. You have the extension manager that permits like you to interact with the DevTools suite and like the extension framework. You also have the service manager so that interacts with the Dart VM, and you also have like the DTD manager, which is like stand for Dart Tool Daemon Manager, which allow you to interact with the Dart tooling daemon. So what exactly does that mean? That means that with the app shared, with the DevTools app shared dependency, you will be able to communicate between like the official DevTools and your app. This is what's going to transfer data between both of these views. And we'll also have, as I said, the DevTools extension, which is the second dependency that we added. And this is like just useful to create all the view that will show up in the DevTools itself. So for example, here you can see, I feel like we all know roughly this architecture, and we can see that we don't have like a material app or Cupertino app, but we have a DevTools extension widget. This DevTools extension widget, it manages theming and layouts mostly. So now you may have a question, like which is like super simple. How do I create a UI for my DevTools extension? That's a very good question, firstly. This is actually quite magical. We don't have to do anything, and this is very simple. For that, as I say, we have in a DevTools app shared, we have a UI.dart which is added, and this does all the magic. Basically, it added like all of the common things and theming for the DevTools extension and the DevTools itself. For example, we can add like buttons, like you will do like in Flutter, but you can call them directly like a DevTools button, and that just show up as a DevTools button. And we have like a lot of UIs like this. So once you constructed your UI, for example, I made this one, and I will show you how we get to here in 1 second. So for example, I made like two buttons, a DevTools button, and then this button does things, and I also made a very important data for my packages. And you can show them and you can update them through the TM and like all of the other service managers that I showed you before. So how do we run the DevTools extension? It's actually quite simple, but there is two different ways to do it. We have like the debug run and the release run. So let's speak about the debug run first. So as I said, right now you have like this web project that is building like your extension. And what you want to do is like you want to actually define some variable so you can run it in a simulated environment for the DevTools. What it does is basically as simple as just running like your project, your web app, but with the DevTools which is simulated. So here, for example, I have like my simulated DevTool, and you can see that the placeholders that I had before, it just show up here. So great, but now you can make your own UIs. But the thing is, like, why should you use like the debug? Why should you use like the debug run? Firstly, because it has all of the features that we know and love. For example, like the hot reloading, the hot restarting, and you can connect VM to it, an application to it, so you don't have to basically build your app to look at it first, and this is not the way that Flutter works. And then after you have like the release run, where basically you just make this command, which is like Dart run DevTools extension build and copy. What it does, it just build like the same as if you were doing like Flutter build web, and after from this build directory that it will create, it's just going to take the whole list of files from there, and it's going to put it in the other package, what we see like my awesome package extension DevTools. If that's not clear, I'm speaking about we could basically building the my awesome package DevTools extension. We're building it and we're taking the result of the build and we're putting in the build directory from my awesome package. So you can do it manually, but there's a command for it. And basically, you now have like your own DevTools extension that work for official DevTools, and that's actually basically it. I know that it's very concise, but I don't have like many times, and I would have like loved to speak more about DTD manager and services manager, but there is actually not a lot of documentation. So I really, if you are looking forward to building your own extension, I would recommend you to look at the Flutter Build Show DevTools extension, but more importantly at the article by Kenzie Davidson, which is like a technical writer for the Flutter and our team. Also, there is like the Flutter DevTools survey for Q2 of 2024. If you didn't do it, please do it. It's just like a few minutes, and this is how like Flutter developers can come and like complain or say what works and what doesn't work about the DevTools. So if you have any complaint to fill to them, like this is how we can make big change. And at the end, this is me. And I also have like some people who messed with my slide yesterday, and they say that I'm a junior reactive developer, and I have no idea who is this, but I have proof. So, and that's all for me. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer them because I didn't have a lot of time again.